Part 1. I'm not impulsive. I'm the guy who checks the thermostat before bed and feels proud when the grocery receipt matches the budget line in my notes app. I work in municipal procurement, glorified paper pushing, so my whole personality is, follow process, avoid risk, keep everything documented. It's how I stay calm in a world that feels like it's always one surprise away from taking your footing out from under you. That's why I noticed him. He was sitting outside the 24-hour pharmacy near our house, tucked into the corner where the light doesn't quite reach. A shopping cart, a torn blanket, and a cardboard sign that didn't beg so much as state a fact: hungry. Anything helps. I would love to tell you I stopped because I'm kind. The truth is I stopped because I saw his hands. They were trembling so hard he couldn't lift a plastic bottle to his mouth. He looked up when I got close. Not aggressive. Not pleading. Just exhausted. "You okay?" I asked, already scanning for danger like a responsible adult does. He tried to speak and coughed so hard he folded in on himself. The cough had a wet edge that made my stomach tighten. That's when the money part started, whether I wanted it to or not. Because the first thing my brain did was calculate: ambulance, ER, bill. Still, I called 911. Part 2. The paramedics arrived fast. One of them asked his name. He hesitated, then said, "Ray." "Any ID, Ray?" the paramedic asked. Ray shook his head. His eyes darted toward me, sharp for half a second. "No cops," he rasped. "We're medical," the paramedic said. "We just need a name." Ray swallowed. Ray Donlin. He was trying to sit up, failing, pride doing more work than muscles. The paramedic asked about insurance, and Ray gave a laugh that sounded like it hurt. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was the way he kept trying to act normal while his body clearly wasn't. Maybe it was the memory of my dad's last hospital stay, the way the bill came faster than the grief. "I'll sign," I said before I could stop myself. The paramedic looked at me. "Sir, you're not obligated." "I know." My voice came out too steady, like I was signing a work form. "But I'm here. I'll sign." They loaded him in. One paramedic handed me paperwork on a clipboard. I saw the line, "Responsible party." I signed anyway. That night, I told my wife, Laurel, what happened. I expected an argument. I expected anger. Instead she went very still, then asked one question: "How much?" I said, "I don't know." She stared at me like that was the worst answer possible. Part 3. The hospital called the next morning. "Mr. Carson? We're confirming you're financially responsible for Raymond Donlin's visit yesterday." Something about hearing it out loud made me sweat. I signed as a good Samaritan. "Is that?" "It lists you as responsible party," the woman said, flat and practiced. "Current estimate is $6,400. That does not include physician fees." Laurel listened on speaker. Her mouth tightened with each number like she was bracing for impact. When I hung up, I tried to keep my calm, rational tone. "We'll set up a payment plan." Laurel laughed once, sharp. "We're already on a payment plan. It's called living. We were not destitute, but we weren't comfortable either. 2 kids, one in college, one in braces. Credit card balance we kept pretending was temporary. Laurel's mom needed help with rent twice last year. Our savings was basically a fragile suggestion. I went to check on Ray after work. He was in a curtained bay, for in his arm, eyes half closed. When he saw me, his expression shifted, something like alarm covered by gratitude. "You didn't have to," he said. "I know," I replied. "But you needed help." He stared at the ceiling. "Help has a price." I thought he meant the bill. Now I know he meant more. Part 4. Ray was discharged 2 days later. They gave him antibiotics and a list of shelters. He didn't even look at the list. "I'm not going back into the system," he said, voice low. "The system?" I asked. He looked at me like he was deciding if I was safe. "Anywhere they can find me." "Who's they?" I asked. He didn't answer, just stood there unsteady, shoes too big, hospital socks showing. A nurse hovered like she wanted him gone. I told myself I was doing one more controlled, limited thing. "I can get you a motel for a couple nights," I said. "Just to recover." Laurel was going to hate it. I already knew. Ray's eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because," I started, then stopped. The honest answer was messy, because my conscience was loud, because I'd signed a bill anyway, because it felt worse to pay thousands and then let him sleep behind a dumpster. He nodded once, wary. 2 nights. At the motel, I paid with a credit card and told myself, this is finite. This ends clean. In the parking lot, Ray said, "I can pay you back." I almost said, "Don't worry about it." I didn't. I just said, "Get some sleep." As I drove home, my phone rang from an unknown number. "Is this Ethan Carson?" a man asked. "Yes. I'm calling about a missing person." "Raymond. We have reason to believe he's been sighted near your area. There is substantial money at stake." The phrase substantial money slid into my brain like a hook. Part 5. I asked who he was. "Recovery Services," the man said. "Authorized." "Authorized by who?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "Family," he said, like that explained everything. "His loved ones are desperate. There's a reward. We just need to confirm if you've had contact." My mouth went dry. "I haven't," I lied. He paused. "If you do, call this number. Don't involve police. It complicates things." Then he hung up. When I walked into the house, Laurel was sitting at the kitchen table with our laptop open. Bank app on the screen. She didn't look up. "You paid for a motel," she said. "I told you I was checking on him," I replied, too defensive. "You didn't tell me you were buying him a room." She tapped the screen. "We got hit with the hospital deposit today. And now this." I tried to keep my voice even. "It's 2 nights." Laurel finally looked at me. "You keep doing things that cost money without talking to me. You want to feel in control?" Control would be not volunteering us as someone's safety net. I wanted to argue. Instead I said, "I got a weird call. Someone looking for him." Her eyes sharpened. "Why?" "I don't know. But I did know one thing, money was circling this guy like sharks." Part 6. I went back to the motel to warn Ray. He opened the door immediately, like he'd been waiting by it. His face tightened when I mentioned recovery services. "They found the area," he murmured. "Who are you?" I asked. I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. "Because people don't hire recovery for no reason." Ray's shoulders sagged. "I'm not Ray Donlin," he said. Twist number 1 hit hard, not because I was shocked a homeless guy lied about his name, but because he sounded ashamed about it, like the lie was a symptom of something bigger. "My name is Raymond Halpern," he said quietly. The name didn't click until he added, "Halpern Holdings." I knew that one. Local headlines. Commercial real estate. A charitable foundation Laurel's company had solicited donations from. "You're missing," I whispered. He nodded once. On purpose at first. Then not. I stared at him. "Why are you living like this if you're—" "Because money isn't cash," he snapped, then immediately softened. "Sorry. Because everything I own is behind paperwork I can't access without ID. And my ID is gone. I thought about the recovery guy. Your family wants you back. Raymond's laugh was bitter. They want the idea of me back. They want control of what happens if I don't return. That was the moment I realized, I hadn't saved a random man. I'd stepped into a fight over a fortune. Part 7. Raymond told me the broad outline in short, careful pieces. He'd been spiraling, drinking, sleeping poorly, paranoid. He'd tried to push his company's CFO out after noticing irregular transfers. The CFO was his brother-in-law, Curtis. Curtis told the board Raymond was unstable. There were lawyers. There were petitions. Guardianship was mentioned like a gentle word, even though Raymond said it felt like a cage. I left before they could declare me incompetent, Raymond said. I thought I'd clear my head, get a lawyer I could trust, come back on my terms. And then? I asked. He looked away. Then someone made sure I couldn't come back. He showed me a scrap of paper with numbers, safe deposit box. Proof, he said. Documents, ID copy, a letter to my attorney. But you need identification to access it. It was absurd. A man worth hundreds of millions locked out of his own lifeline because he couldn't prove his name. I drove home with my hands sweating, my brain bouncing between two equally ugly thoughts. This is dangerous. Get out. This could fix everything. Laurel didn't have to say it. I could see it on her face when I told her, calculation fighting morality. There's a reward, she said quietly. I'm not turning him in, I replied too fast. Laurel stared at me. Are you sure that's why you're helping? I didn't answer, because the truth was I wasn't sure anymore. Part 8. Raymond couldn't stay at the motel. Two men had come asking questions at the front desk, and the clerk was too eager to be helpful. Against every sensible instinct, I brought him to our house for one night. That was the lie I told Laurel and myself. Raymond in our guest room looked wrong, like wealth had been forcibly erased and the outline didn't match the body anymore. Laurel gave him soup with the careful politeness you give a bomb. That night, I heard Laurel on the phone in the laundry room, whispering. When I walked in, she jumped like she'd been caught stealing. Who was that? I asked. My cousin Nate, she said too quickly. He knows security people. Maybe he can help verify Raymond, get him to a lawyer. I wanted to feel relieved. I did feel relieved. That's why twist number 2 stung so much later. Laurel didn't call security people. She called someone who'd once bragged at Thanksgiving about finding people who don't want to be found, and how there was good money in it. Nate showed up the next afternoon with a friendly grin and a watch that cost more than my car payment. Ray, he said, like they were old buddies. Heard you're in a tough spot. Raymond's eyes went flat. Who are you? Family, Laurel said brightly. Too bright. Nate's gaze flicked around the house like he was taking inventory. And then he said it, casual as weather, there's a 6-figure reward, you know. If we make the right call. Part 9. Raymond stood slowly, favoring his bad foot. That reward isn't for helping me, he said. It's for delivering me. Nate shrugged. Depends who's paying. Laurel's face did something I'll never unsee, fear and hope at the same time. Like the reward was a life raft and she was already halfway in the water. I pulled Laurel into the kitchen. What are you doing? I hissed. Her eyes shone with tears that didn't fall. I'm trying to keep us from drowning, she whispered. We're behind. We're not okay. And you keep making choices like money is imaginary. I wanted to say, it's not about the reward. But that wasn't fully true. Because the reward number had already started rewriting parts of my brain. Nate asked Raymond questions, birthplace, old addresses, names, like he was building a profile. Raymond refused. Nate's smile thinned. "Then I can't help," he said, and started toward the door. He paused on the porch and added, "I'll give you both a chance to think. 6 figures solves a lot." After he left, Raymond looked at Laurel. "He's not here to help," he said softly. Laurel didn't deny it. She just said, "I'm sorry." That was twist number 3. Laurel wasn't just frustrated. She was tempted enough to betray someone in our home. And the worst part? I understood why. Part 10. That night, Raymond asked me to drive him to the bank at opening. "If I can get into the box," he said, "I can prove who I am. I can get a lawyer. I can end this." It sounded like a clean solution. I grabbed onto it like a lifeline. We went early. Laurel stayed home, saying she had a headache. Her voice was too controlled. At the bank, the teller looked at Raymond's face, then at me, then back at Raymond. "I'm sorry," she said, polite and unmoved. "We need valid identification." Raymond tried explaining. The manager came. Same answer. Raymond's hands shook, and I realized he wasn't trembling from cold. He was trembling from rage held down by exhaustion. On the way out, he whispered, "They planned this." I tried to comfort him, but my brain was already spiraling. We still have the hospital bill. The motel charges. The credit card. Laurel is cracking. When we got home, Laurel wasn't there. On the counter was a note, "I went to talk to Nate. I just need information." Raymond read it and went pale. "We have to leave," he said. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A voice I hadn't heard before, smooth, confident. "Mr. Carson? My name is Curtis Halpern. I believe you have my brother-in-law." My stomach dropped through the floor. Part 11. Curtis spoke like a man who'd never been told no. "Raymond is unwell," he said, gentle and condescending. "He disappears when he's having episodes. We're trying to ensure he receives care." "That's not what he said," I replied, voice tight. Curtis sighed, like I was being difficult. "Of course he'd say that. Paranoia is part of the condition." I glanced at Raymond, who was gripping the back of a chair so hard his knuckles were white. "What do you want?" I asked. "We want him safe," Curtis said. "There's also a reward for information leading to his return. I'm sure your family could use it." My throat tightened because he was right. He knew it. He was using it. Then Curtis added the line that changed everything. "By the way, our counsel will be contacting you regarding the hospital charges you assumed. We appreciate your involvement. But there are liability considerations if Raymond was encouraged in his delusions." That was twist number 4. It wasn't just a reward carrot. It was a legal stick. They could make me the villain with paperwork. After the call, Raymond whispered, "He's going to destroy you to get to me." I stared at my neatly organized life, the bills, the calendar, the illusion of control, and realized money wasn't just driving conflict. It was weaponized. It could rewrite reality. Part 12. Here's the false resolution. Laurel came home that evening. She looked wrecked, eyes swollen, mascara smeared. She told me Nate had agreed to back off after she cried and begged. She swore she hadn't given our address, even though he obviously had it. She swore she hadn't told Curtis anything, even though Curtis had already called me. "I fixed it," she said, desperate. "It's done. We can go back to normal." I wanted to believe her so badly I almost did. I wanted to crawl back into my calm, rational self, the one who believed problems could be filed and solved. Raymond sat at the table, silent. Then he said quietly, "If Nate backed off, it's because he got paid already." Laurel flinched. "That's not true." Raymond's voice stayed even. People don't walk away from 6 figures out of kindness. Laurel burst into sobs. I didn't, I was scared. I was scared of the bills. I was scared you'd leave me when you realized how bad our finances are. That stopped me cold. How bad? Laurel wiped her face, ashamed. I took a home equity line last year, she whispered. To help my mom. And to cover the credit card. I thought I could pay it down before you noticed. Then you added $8,000 of hospital debt like it was nothing. My heart hammered. Another hidden financial truth. Another betrayal tied to money, disguised as care. For a minute, I thought the crisis was just our marriage. Then the doorbell rang. Part 13. 2 men in jackets stood on our porch, polite smiles, eyes that didn't match. Behind them, Nate leaned against his truck. Ethan, Nate called, like we were buddies. Let's not make this weird. Raymond moved toward the back of the house. I stepped in front of him without thinking. One of the men held up a folder. We have documentation indicating Raymond Halpern is a vulnerable adult, he said. We're authorized to transport him for evaluation. Authorized by who? I demanded. They didn't answer. Nate did. By people with money. Laurel stood behind me shaking, whispering, Ethan, please. Please don't. Don't what? Don't fight? Don't ruin the chance at a reward? Don't expose what she'd done with the home equity line? My hands clenched. I could feel my responsible self screaming, do not escalate. Let authorities handle it. But these weren't authorities. They were purchased certainty. I said, if you come inside, I'm calling the police. Nate smirked. And tell them what? You're hiding a missing billionaire in your guest room? Sounds like a kidnapping story, Ethan. How do you think that plays? That's when I understood, money wasn't just tempting Laurel. It was trapping me. They had narratives ready. Raymond leaned close and whispered, I can end this if I get one call. 1. I realized he wasn't asking for heroism. He was asking for access. So I did something I never do, I gambled. Part 14. I told Nate and the men, give me 10 minutes. I'll bring him out. Nate raised an eyebrow. Sure. Inside, I shoved my phone into Raymond's hand. Call whoever, I said. Now. He dialed a number he'd memorized. He spoke fast, controlled, like a man stepping back into an old role. It's Raymond. Listen, safe deposit box 214, Westbrook Branch. The letter inside. Get a court order. Get my attorney. And, he swallowed hard, freeze Curtis. He handed the phone back, breath shaking. That's all I can do. I turned to Laurel. Did you take money? I asked her, quiet. She stared at the floor. Nate said, he said he'd just get advice from Curtis, she whispered. He said Curtis would pay our hospital bill and the HELOC if we cooperated. My stomach twisted. So you sold him? Laurel sobbed. I thought it would fix everything. That's the thing about money. It convinces you fixing things is the same as erasing consequences. I walked outside and said, he's coming. But Raymond didn't come. Instead, sirens did. Not for me, at first. They pulled up fast, lights bright, and officers stepped out with purpose. Behind them, a woman in a blazer approached with a badge, Adult Protective Services. Nate's smirk vanished. He looked genuinely confused for the first time. The APS woman said, we have a court order. Raymond Halpern is to be placed under temporary protection pending identity confirmation. One of Nate's men tried to speak. The officer cut him off. Nate stared at me like I'd betrayed him. And maybe I had. Because the call Raymond made wasn't just to his attorney. It was to someone who could buy speed in the legal system. Money can be a trap, but it can also be a lever. Raymond finally got his hands on one. Part 15. Raymond left our house under protective custody. Curtis didn't show up. Nate did, yelling on the sidewalk, and got told to back off. For a week, I thought it was over. That was my second false calm, the one I didn't want to admit was false. Then the bank called about suspicious activity on my accounts. Then the hospital billing office called again, only now they were reviewing whether I was liable because the patient's representatives had disputed the paperwork. Curtis's lawyers sent a letter implying I'd exploited Raymond. Another letter hinted Laurel had solicited compensation. It was all phrased politely, like threats in business casual. And then, 2 weeks later, a certified envelope arrived with a check inside. Not from Raymond. From the Halpern Legal Trust. It covered the hospital bill. It covered the motel. It even included an extra $15,000 labeled inconvenience and legal consultation. Laurel cried when she saw it. Relief, shame, both. I didn't feel relief. I felt exposed. Because the check proved something ugly, part of me had wanted to be paid all along. I'd hated Laurel for considering the reward, but I'd been carrying my own quiet hope like a hidden coin. Raymond resurfaced in the news a month later. Headline: Missing Executive Found. Board Shakeup. CFO resigns. Curtis was stepping away, pending investigation. You could read the money between the lines. Raymond got rich again in the way only rich people can, by reclaiming what was always his, through courts and power and signatures. He didn't call me. He didn't thank me publicly. He didn't owe me that. What he did do was send one final message through his attorney: you were not wrong to help. But you were wrong to think helping would stay simple. Laurel and I are still together, technically. But the marriage changed shape. Money used to be a shared problem with shared rules. Now it feels like a third person in the room, one we've both lied to and been lied by. I used to think responsibility meant control. Now I think it's something else, admitting how quickly you can become someone you don't recognize when enough dollars get dangled in front of your fear. I saved a homeless man because I thought I could afford the moral cost. Turns out the real bill wasn't the hospital. It was what money revealed about all of us once it entered the room.